This next series of videos is going to be about the 1990 Light Infantryman, which is what I was. I joined the Army National Guard in 1986, graduated from the Infantry Officer Basic course in 1989, and then went out into the Army as a rifle platoon leader in 1990. So in 1990, you have to remember, we were very primitive by today's standards. The GPS constellation was being secretly launched, but we really didn't have GPS receivers. We didn't have drones, so we had to send people out to get reconnaissance instead of little helicopter things. We didn't have access to satellite imagery at the tactical level, and by tactical level I mean like light infantry brigade and below, or any type of brigade and below. In 1990, the Berlin Wall had fallen, but the Soviet Union was still a thing. It didn't collapse until 1991. So that's why I wanted to choose 1990 as the year of this, just to see what light infantry U.S. Army person would need for a recon patrol. And the first thing I want to start out with is the uniform. This is the lightweight BDU. It didn't matter what time of year it was, we were going to wear the lightweight BDU because it was thin material. At first it was 100% cotton, but they wore out really fast, so they went to a 50-50 nylon cotton blend shortly after. But the Woodland BDU lightweight would dry very quickly, so even in the winter time we didn't want to wear the heavyweight uniform that was made of this like denim material. I remember the first one I was issued had like this big Elvis collar from the 70s that went all the way out to here. When they issued the lightweight BDU, it was the 1980s, so it had a smaller 1980s collar. You'll notice this uniform has no markings. If I wore my normal uniform, I would have a patch on it that would tell the enemy if I were captured. They would know what division I was in. Since I was an officer, I would have crossed rifles with my regiment indicated, so they'd know what regiment I was in. They'd know my rank, which I'd have to give them anyway because of the Geneva Convention. They would know that I was an air assault soldier because I'd have air assault wings sewn on my name tag. So I didn't need any of that when I went on a recon patrol and I was going behind enemy lines and I might be captured. I just wanted to wear a sterile uniform. I'm still in uniform per the Geneva Convention. I'm not going to be shot as a spy or anything like that. I'm just not wearing a uniform that's correct in terms of Army Regulations 670-1. I've just removed any of the name tags, division rank insignia, additional skill identifier badges, anything like that. It's just a plain, straight uniform. Already we were talking about our fighting equipment in terms of layers. So what we're going to go over in this video is the inner layer. So the inner layer just consists of the uniform. The headgear that I preferred to wear on a patrol was the what we called the boonie hat. Or also could be called the sun hat. But anyway, it's made out of the same material as the lightweight BDU. It just has a nice brim on it, and what that brim does is it keeps the sun off me, it keeps rain off my glasses, and it also keeps insects off me, particularly if I treat it with permethrin, which was a insecticide, really, insect repellent that was used to treat clothes that were just beginning to be fielded in 1990. One thing I always carried on patrol in the inner layer would have been some type of bandana. A lot of soldiers carried cravats, which is what the medics carried with them to make splints out of. It was just basically a strip of cloth, but this could be used for so many things, as I've talked about in other videos. Everything from filtering water that you're about to decontaminate with your iodine pills to wearing it for a dust mask or a mask for camouflage or around the neck, just to keep insects out or to absorb sweat, or as a do-rag. It was frowned upon in my day, but in Vietnam movies you'd always see soldiers wearing cravats on their head like a do-rag. There's so many uses. I won't get into it. Pot holder, soaking up dew off the grass in a survival situation to squeeze out and drink. So I'd always carry one of these in the inner layer. In my right cargo pocket, I would carry a military map. So if I was going out on patrol, I was the platoon leader, so I'd likely be the patrol leader. So it was my responsibility to navigate and get us to where we were going, and to know at all times where we were, because if we came under fire at any point along our route, I would have to call in field artillery or mortar support, and to do that I would need to know where I was. So this is a military map, 1 to 50,000 scale. This one actually shows the Baltimore area. So this is like the Baltimore Harbor up here. It's urban terrain. And then as you get farther south, it's more rural terrain. I never wore any type of fancy watch like a Rolex Mariner watch that cost $1,000 or anything like that. I always used simple Casio LCD wristwatches. I would typically turn the watch face to the inside of my wrist so I wouldn't reflect light, although I noticed that this is shiny metal, so I would probably hit that with some spray paint before I went out on patrol. But in any case, I would just have like this inexpensive $30 or $40 Casio G-Shock watch, which is very durable. Had a light on it where I could see it at night. I could go in the water and it's waterproof. I could even scuba dive with it if I needed to, surface swim with it. It does everything that a Rolex watch does, but only costs $40 and is easier to read. Old soldiers will recognize the Army issue memoranda book. It was simply a notebook where I could keep notes. You had to be really careful with these notebooks because if you get captured, any notes you took were of great intelligence value. So what became popular later on in the decade of the 90s was we started carrying just 3x5 cards with a little binder clip. And then after we took our notes and got done with them, we could just throw away the 3x5 card, throw it in a burn bag in the TOC or something like that. So this became more in vogue than the Memobook after about 1995. These are the types of pens I carried. You had your good old US government issue Skillcraft ballpoint pen. However, if the ink got wet, it would run. So a lot of times we preferred these. These are the actual mechanical pencils that I used in land navigation courses, like when I was in the infantry officer basic course. It's made by Papermate. I don't know if you can buy these anymore, but I've still got a little hoard of them. And then the other thing that we used, see if any old 1980s and 90s infantry officers recognize these, but these are just alcohol pens. And I bought this in the mid 1980s, and we just used them to mark on laminated maps. But anyway, it's made in Germany. It's like German writing on it, and it's super fine, and it still works. This pen is probably close to 40 years old, and it still writes. So it's pretty amazing German technology. Another thing I might carry on a recon patrol is this pen flare set. And it's literally a little bit bigger than a pen. And then it comes with these 3 flares, 1, 2, 3, red meteor flares. And if I was on patrol and I needed to attract the attention of a helicopter or mark my position when a jet was coming in to provide close air support, so it could either, I could direct its fire or whatever. Just good for air to ground or ground to air launching. Sometime back in the 80s or 90s when you had to go to a place called a bookstore and get a real book. A book came out by a Special Air Service trooper, British Army Special Air Service trooper named Lofty Wiseman. It was a survival manual, and in that was the first time I encountered the idea of taking an Altoid 10 and making a little survival kit out of it. So I just took a little 10 box like candy would come in and spray painted it brown for camouflage. And then when I opened it, I just had all kinds of little things like water purification tablets, a cigarette lighter to start a fire, any kind of medication I might need, anything like that was in my survival kit. And I started out with the Lofty Wiseman packing list, and as time progressed, I found that I needed some things that I didn't have in the kit, and there were things in the kit I didn't need, so I just adjusted the packing list to make it more specific to me. But it was just basically a little survival / first aid kit that I would carry with me. Since I wear glasses and I don't see very well without them, I'd be in big trouble if I lost my glasses. So in my cargo pocket, I would carry my Army issue birth control glasses. So this is the little Army issue case that the Army eye doctor would give you, and in my case, these are the old birth control glasses. So I would carry these as a spare, even though I wouldn't be caught dead wearing them as my primary glasses. Of course, I had to wear my dog tags, and what I would do is I would take a 550 cord and I would remove the 7 inner strands and just have the kern, is the German word for it, the outer layer, and then I'd run the dog tag chain through that. That accomplished two things. One, it would camouflage it, because the chain itself is shiny, so if I had this part exposed around my neck, I would still be camouflaged. And the other thing, I'd find that that this chain would yank the hairs out of my chest and neck, and it was uncomfortable, so it was more comfortable to wear this 550 cord around it. Then the other thing that, of course, the working part of the ID tag is the tag itself, which has information about name, social security number, religion, and blood type, in case you're wounded or killed. The religion part, so they know how to treat your body after you're dead. And then just for silence, I would tape the two dog tags together. The Army issued black leather gloves with wool liners, and you just had zero dexterity when you were wearing those things. So as soon as we could, we would try to get these aviator gloves, which are the Nomex gloves. And these are actually the tan desert Nomex gloves. And I found these to be too light colored for the terrain that we're in, so I would just hit the back of it with spray paint. And anyway, so I had these Nomex gloves, and I liked them because you had a lot of dexterity, and they're also fire resistant. So if you were dealing with any type of fire, this is almost like a pot holder or something. You could deal with a fire or hot surfaces pretty well with these on. And they have a leather palm, so you could even rappel for short periods of time with gloves like this on. Underneath my BDU shirt, I would have worn this brown cotton shirt. And I bet I've had 30 of these shirts in the past, and this one is like the only one that survived. And I just had like a green nylon web belt. Finally, in 1990, the 1990 light infantryman's favorite boot was the jungle boot by far. And the jungle boot is hard to come by, but it's still made by a company called McCrae, made in the USA in North Carolina. The jungle boots that we had back then had the Panama sole on them, so this was very good at gripping in muddy surfaces like a jungle, and also it shed mud easily, so after you walked for a while, the mud would sort of come off by itself. So that is the inner layer that a 1990 light infantryman would wear on a reconnaissance patrol. In our next video, we'll talk about the middle layer, or fighting load.